What's up, guys? This is Eric from eDoesIT, and today we're going to be creating an Active Directory lab on a computer using VirtualBox. So first, we're going to download VirtualBox. Based on what operating system you have, you can either do Windows, Mac, Linux. I have a Windows, so I would click this, and then it should automatically download up here. I'm not going to click it right now because I already have it installed. And then you also want to make sure you get the extension pack. So make sure you click on this, and the same thing goes for that. After that, we're going to install Windows Server 2019. Make sure you get the ISO edition. ISO downloads, don't download the VHD or the Windows Server on Azure. That's not what we're doing today. And then pick the language you desire. Speaking English right here. So we'll do this and then click on this, and then it should show up here also. So you're going to download the Windows 11 ISO. Don't download the installation assistant or the installation media. We don't need that for today. But just go on download now. Oh, actually, you got to click this. Download now. Pick your language. Do English. Once you're here, you click on this, and you should have Windows 11 ISO on your system. So once all that's installed and you have VirtualBox on your PC, then let's open up VirtualBox. Let's go to New. I'm going to name this the domain controller. ISO image, we don't have to do that yet. And then Microsoft Windows, and then Windows 11 64-bit. Click next. If you have a beefy PC like I do, we're gonna raise this actually to 2048. It's about 2 gigs for the domain controller. Next. Finish. And then we're gonna edit a couple settings here. So on the general, so go to settings here, sorry, and then go to general, go to advanced. We're gonna make sure these are bidirectional. Basically what bidirectional allows you to do is allows you to drag and drop from your PC into the virtual machine's PC. So you can drag and drop files or whatever you need to do. And we're gonna go to system. So we go to system. I have my memory at 2 gigs. And then if your PC is beefy enough, you can, you can make this 2, you can make it 4. I'll just leave it at 2 right now. And then lastly, we're going to go to network. So the big thing here is that since this is the domain controller, we're going to have 2 NICs. So one to connect to the internet, and then one to connect to the internal network within the domain controller. So we're going to enable network adapter, and we're going to do internal network right here, internet. And that's about it. And then we're going to double click on the domain controller. So all your settings are there. We'll power this up. X out of that. Here, this is where you're going to pick the Windows Server 2019. So wherever you saved it, make sure you remember where you saved it. And then I have Windows Server 2019 here. I did rename it. Yours might have a weird name. But when I downloaded it, I did rename it to Windows Server 2019 so that I can, know that it's Windows Server 2019. So right here, we're going to click on this and then mount and retry boot. So when you see this, just click any key and then it should boot. Up. This can take a while if your PC is a little bit slower, but I am fortunate enough to have a slightly beefier PC. Run the specs. All right, let's get back to it. English, next, install now. Okay, now once you get to this screen, we're gonna do desktop experience. We're doing desktop experience because if you don't do desktop experience and you do standard evaluation, you're just gonna get a command line and you're not gonna get the graphic user interface. So let's do that. Let's do next, accept, next. We're gonna do custom, and then we're gonna hit next. All right, so now you're gonna come to this screen. As an administrator, just make it password. Your password because, oops, typo. Make password as a password because this is a lab. Obviously, if this is real, you want to do something a little bit. Password 1. Sorry. Make it password 1. Just so it's simple and easy to remember. See how it says Control Alt Delete here? If I hit Control Alt Delete, it won't register it through the virtual machine. It'll register it through my actual PC. What you want to do is you want to go to Input, Keyboard, and then insert Control Alt Delete, and that should let you in. And then we're gonna do our password here. password 1. And then I don't know if you guys can tell. We don't need to do it right now. Oh shit. So I just had a little problem. I'm gonna change the settings and I'm actually gonna add a couple cores to my CPU. Okay. And I don't know if you guys can notice this, but it looks like the refresh rate on the virtual machines monitor is a little bit less than, the refresh rate on my monitor. If you want to change that, we'll go to devices and insert guest edition CD image. After we do that, we can go to Windows, we go to this PC, and you can double click this. Then we're going to run the AMD 64 version of this. Go next, 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 and then reboot later. As you can see, it's already smoother, but we'll just shut it down. Continue, and then we'll jump right back into the domain controller. Okay, here we go. So now I can have full screen on my virtual machine. So basically that makes it easier for you to navigate the domain controller on the VM. And then we're going to move on to the next step. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to be setting up IP addresses on the internal network. So you want to click on the bottom right here for your network settings. Then go to change adapter options. And then right now we have to figure out what IP address is for the internet, for our router, for the internet and our home network, and then what IP address we're going to use to create for the internal network. So we're just going to click on this and go to details. So this looks like the IP address for our router, for my home router that connects me to the internet. So just for keeping track, we're going to just put internet on this. And then you can see details here. This is a 169.254 IP address. So that is not the one that's connecting to my router. I'm going to rename this internal, because this is for the internal network. Oops. Internal. So now we're going to be setting up the IP address for the internal network. So we go here, we go to details. You see how it says 169.254. That means this is an IPPO address looking for a DHCP server. We're going to go to properties, click on IPv4, make sure that you're on the internal network. This is why we renamed these. We're going to use the following IP address, 172.16.0.1. You can use other IP addresses. This is what we're going to be using today. You don't need to put a default gateway because the domain controller is going to act as a default gateway. And since we have Active Directory here, Active Directory automatically assigns a DNS. So we're just going to do a loopback. 0, 1. And we're just going to hit OK. Okay. And close that. Something I did forget to do was change the name of the PC. So we're going to do that real quick. We're just going to go down to System, rename the PC. And we're going to name it Domain Controller. No spaces. And then we'll restart the PC from here. Okay, so for the next step, we're going to be installing Active Directory and domain services. So if you have this window up, cool. If you don't have it, I'll just show you how to bring it back up. All you need to do is click on the Windows Server Manager. It brings us right back up. Now you're going to go to Add Roles and Features. Next. Next. This is the server. Active Directory domain services. Add features. Next. 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 Install it. Okay, so now that we have Active Directory domain services installed, we're going to close this. We're going to click on the flag up here, and we're going to do our post-deployment configuration. So we did install Active Directory, but we did not create the domain yet. So we just got to do this. We're going to add a new forest, the root domain name. So if you had a corporation, it could be like, at target.com or at walmart.com or whatever. But since this is just a small lab, we're just going to do a domain. mydomain.com. Click next. Password 1. We're just using the same password for everything, so we do not get confused. Click next. Click next. Next. Wait this out. And then install. Okay, now we're gonna, after a little bit, we're gonna get this message, and then it's just gonna automatically restart for us. That might have took a while for you guys, so after this, you're gonna come back to the screen, input keyboard, Control Alt Delete. Now you're gonna see this, the my domain / administrator is gonna look a little bit different. So we're just gonna log in here. So right now we're going to create our own domain admin account instead of using the built-in administrative account. So you're gonna go to Windows, Windows Administrative Tools, and Active Directory Users and Computers. Now we have mydomain.com. You could have had, whatever business or corporation you work for. We're going to open that up. And then we're going to create a new organizational unit. So a new OU right here. And then we're going to name this admins because we are creating admins. Okay. Now that we have created the admins, we can go to new. Make sure that's highlighted. New user. Do my name. Garcia. And then typically with an admin account, they'll do like a dash, and then we'll do eGarcia. This is at mydomain.com. Password, keep everything simple. Password 1. Password 1. Check that, and then password never expires. Passwords don't match because my typing skills. Cool. Admin. Garcia, looks all good. Password never expires. Finish. And now we have our admin account. And the last step in creating the domain admin account, you have to go here, properties, member of, add, do domain admins, check names. There you go. Okay. Apply. Okay. And that is the admin account right there. And then lastly, after we did create the admin account, now we're going to log in as the admin. So we can just exit out of these, sign out, Control Alt Delete here. We can do other user. You don't have to log in, and then just log in with the account that you guys made. And that is how we create an admin account in Active Directory. All right, guys. So now we're going to install RAS and NAT. Which is remote access server and network address translation. So basically what you want to do for this is we're going to add roles and features. Go next, next. This is our server. Next, and then we're going to click on remote access. Click next, next, next. Make sure you click on routing here. And basically what this does, it allows for our clients to connect to our internal virtual network, but also have access to the internet. And click next, next, next. We'll install this. So once that's done installing, you're going to go to tools, and then you're going to go to routing and remote access. You have this, we're going to configure and enable. Next, we're installing NAT to allow internal clients to connect to the internet using one public IP address. That's what I was talking about earlier. If this doesn't show up, you should be able to click this and then choose between the internal and the internet. But let's just close this and then just redo it. Hopefully it comes up. Configure again. Next. Okay, you see how this came up? So this is why we renamed it before. So we want to connect this one to the internet. Next, finish. Cool. And now you have these all green, and your RAS and NAT has been installed. All right, guys, so now we're going to be assigning the DHCP server. So we're going to go to add roles and features here. The DHCP server just basically allows the clients to access the internet through the internal network. It gives them an IP address, basically. So next, DHCP server, add features, next, install. Okay, now that this is done, we can close this. We'll go to tools in a DHCP. The DHCP's purpose is to automatically assign IP addresses to clients. So that's why we need this. And we're going to be assigning a scope for this. So now that you see these two, see how these are red, we're going to change those and make sure that they're green. Good to go. And once we're here, we're going to go to the IPv4. I'm going to right click that. I'm going to put a new scope, just basically a scope of IP addresses that are going to be available to clients. Let's name this basically the entire scope. 100 to 200. So this is going to be the scope. I'm just creating that as the name. Static IP addresses is what we're going to start out with. 0, 1. 200. Sorry, it should be 100, guys. And then we'll make this 24. So this is adding any exclusions. We don't want to add any exclusions, but if you wanted to not have an IP address that was dynamically assigned to a client, this is where you would enter it. The least duration is how long do you want this IP address to be assigned to the client. It could be hours, days. If you're in a cafe, maybe you want hours. Maybe like an hour or so, or maybe 30 minutes. But since we're in a virtual environment, I'm just going to keep it as 8 days in this lab. Do you want to configure these options now? Yes. And then to add an IP address for a router used by clients and to the address below, we're using the domain controller as the default gateway so that the clients can access the internet through. So we're just going to enter the domain controller's IP address. 1, you gotta add that. Domain and DNS servers. So basically when you make Active Directory, you automatically create a DNS server. So this is what's there. You see the IP address there. Wins, we don't need that. Yes, you want to activate the scope now. Okay, so now that we've done that, you're gonna right click here, you're gonna click on authorize, and then let's do a refresh. Yep, and then that works, and we could just refresh up here. So now both of our IPv4 and IPv6 are activated and good to go. So this is how we set up the DHCP server. Now that we have the DHCP server set up, we can go ahead and create some accounts on a client. But first, I am going to borrow a PowerShell script so that I can create 1,000 users at one time, as opposed to going in one by one and creating each user. So I'm going to drag this from my PC into the VM. Okay. Hope it did work. Okay. This is what, just to let you know, this is the setting that I did over here when I did general, advanced, bidirectional. So I just dragged it from my PC. We're going to extract all. Extract. So now we have this. We can delete this. This is what we want. Now that we have our PowerShell script, we're going to open up Windows PowerShell ICE. We want to make sure we run it as admin. Run as administrator. Yes. Open create users. I'll have the link to the PowerShell script below. Though I did not create it, I can go through it and explain what each line does in order to create all the accounts in our system. And now we have to enable the execution for all scripts. So we have to set the execution policy, and set that to unrestricted. Gonna bring up this pop-up, and then we're gonna say yes to all. So now that we have that, we can start to run the script and create all the users. All right, so if we go through this really quick, password for all users, this just sets password 1 to all the users that we're gonna have, and that is from this list of names right here. And the get content just refers to capturing all the names within this file, this names file. So let me pull that up again so you can just see it. So yeah, it's just going to pull it from there. Then after that, this line takes the plain text that we created as password 1, and it converts it into an object that PowerShell can use when creating a password for down here. So for this next line, we're actually creating a new organizational unit within Active Directory. So if we go down to Active Directory, Windows Administrative Tools, Users and Computers. So, and we go to My Domain, you see how it's admins, it's going to create another users, and then it's going to insert all the users that we create from the list of our names, of these names that are in this file, and it's going to put that into that folder or that organizational unit within Active Directory. And then the accidental deletion false is just like if I did new, organizational unit right here, it just kind of unchecks that. So it'll be like that. That's what that line does. One thing I did forget to mention is that when you go to names, just add your name here because that's what we're going to be using. Once you do that, make sure you save that, exit out. So basically we'll go over this part right here. So now we're going to go over the code. This is basically a loop. N is the user's first and last name. So that's basically this whole thing. And to designate what the first name is, you're going to have the first name divided by a split, which is this space. And then the last name is going to be after that. So it'll be Garcia right here. And then it's going to create a username based on that. And that'll be the first name, but the first object of the first name. So 01. And then the last name here. So it's basically going to be E Garcia. That's basically what that's doing there. And then it's going to create that username. And then the cyan is just so that we can differentiate between the username and the actual code and the actual executions that are here. What this is doing is it's going into Active Directory, users and computers. And let's say we were going to do new here, user. It's literally just filling out all these fields based on this information that you're going to find in this file. That's why we need to refer back to that in names text so it knows where to pull everything from. And then it would be assigning a password for each username that is created, which is password 1. So that's what the script does on a line-by-line basis. I tried to explain it to my best ability. Again, I did not create the script. I am not taking credit for that, but I do understand what each line does and what's needed to make each user so that I don't have to go in there and create 1,000 users. So now we're going to change the directory. So CD. We'll go to the C drive. And then we'll do users. I'm on my E Garcia. Save it to my desktop, and then it's the only thing in there. Hit enter. So now it's pulling from that. If we hit LS, we can see that we have the names text document that we need. And since we have that, now we can click play. Now it's creating all the users. So that might take a bit, depending on how slow or fast your PC is, but there should be about 1,000 or so new users in this folder. Once this is done, we'll be able to see it. So now that this is done, you see I closed the Active Directory users and computers. Let me just do that again for you guys. Just go here. There's administrative tools, Active Directory users and computers. Came here. And now this is our new users folder, _users, that this was created. You see right here, it lines up with that. So here, this is all our users, all 1,000. So I didn't have to go in and create 1,000 users. This is really good for a home lab environment. If you want to mess around with Active Directory, you can go to find right here. You can do name. You just type your name, E Garcia. Find now, boom, found my user. If you type Garcia, I believe it would also show my admin account. So too, Eric Garcia is the admin and E Garcia is the one that we created for the script. Okay guys, so now we have Active Directory set up. We pretty much are done with the domain controller. We have our NICs for the internal and the internet. We have our RAS and NAT set up. We have Active Directory domain services set up, and we have the DHCP set up. Now we're going to go back to virtual machine and we're going to create a new client so that it can connect to the internet through the domain controller's DHCP server. So we can actually just minimize this. Let's bring VirtualBox back up. We're going to add a new. It's going to be client 1. Sure, it's Windows 11. We're going to go next 4. Cool. Finish. Edit the settings all the same. Bidirectional. System 4. And then after that, we're going to go to network. And instead of connecting to NAT, we're going to go connect to the internal network that we actually just created. And we're going to hit OK. And then we're just going to power that on. Now, remember the Windows 11 ISO that we downloaded? We have to go do that. So this, I did rename them. You might have not renamed them, but just make sure that you are installing Windows 11 ISO instead of Server 2019. Okay, once you get to the screen, you're going to hit next, install now. I don't have a product key. We're going to do Windows 11 Pro, Windows 11 Home. I don't believe you can connect to the domain controller. We're going to do a custom. This might take a while. All right, so after all of that time, we're going to come to the screen, just click yes in United States. They're going to try and, Microsoft is going to try and make you make an account, but we're going to try to avoid that by clicking on all the right things. Name your device. Let's name this client 1. Domain join instead. Enter name, just be a user. Password, you don't need a password. All right, so I think you were just, so instead of just closing and starting it up, you just have to go into a work environment as opposed to a personal environment. This update part is going to take a while. I'm going to cut through it so you don't have to watch grass grow on my screen. Okay, so after that's installed, hopefully everything is set up correctly. Let's do the same thing we did with the domain controller. Let's just insert guest additions, just so it's a little bit smoother and the refresh rate's a little bit better. AMD 64. Yes. Next. See, much smoother now. Finish. All right, you're gonna just restart one more time. All right, so now that that's all set, let's open up our command prompt to make sure that we're connected to the internal network and the internet. So we're gonna do ipconfig. Okay, so we're connected to our domain controller as the default gateway and mydomain.com. And then let's double check that we're connected to the internet. So it's ping www.google. And yeah, that looks good. All right, so now after we checked all of that, let's go ahead and let's rename the PC. So we'll go to System. We'll go to Advanced Settings, Computer Name. We'll do Client 1. And then we're going to change domain, mydomain.com. So we're going to try and connect to the DC. And once you get to the username and password, we created an admin account and we created my account with my name and all those users. So you can just enter a user here. We're going to just do my non-admin account and the password is password1. Welcome to mydomain.com. Before we're starting, save any files, apply, restart now. Okay, so now we're able to log in as a user. You see how we have both client and domain controller running. Let's just go to back to our domain controller. We're gonna do insert keyboard, Control Alt Delete. We do password1. And then let's go back into our Active Directory. Let's go to DHCP. Server Manager. X. Tools. DHCP. So once we open this up, let's move this over. We'll go to address leases and we can see that client 1 is connected to my domain. So that is saying that this client 1 is connected to the domain controller that we created initially with the server 2019. And that means that everything is working properly. And then we can also go into Active Directory users and computers, Windows Administrative Tools, users and computers. And we'll go to computers here and we can see that client 1 is also connected here. So now going back to our Windows 11 ISO, our client 1. Let's open this up. And instead of logging in with user, we'll go to other user. And this can be any user that was created when we used the PowerShell script. I'm just going to use E. Garcia, because that is me. Password 1. And it's going to set us up and we're logged in. Now that everything is set up, that pretty much means that we're done. We have a mini corporate network and we have one client running on it, but you can have multiple clients running. And we can just power this off. So yeah, we're pretty much done. We were able to install the virtual machine and give the domain controller 2 NICs, one for the internal network and one for the internet. We configured NAT and RAS to allow clients to access the internet through the domain's DHCP server. We set up the DHCP server on the domain controller so that it can automatically assign IP addresses to the Windows 11 clients. We ran a PowerShell script to create 1,000 users that we can play with in our lab on Active Directory. After we created the users, we did create a Windows 11 client to connect to our VirtualBox private network. And we named the new virtual machine client 1, joined it to the domain, mydomain.com in this instance, and then we logged into that domain with one of the accounts we created through PowerShell. So that's pretty much it, guys. That's just a walkthrough of how to kind of set up a home lab for Active Directory, and now you can kind of manipulate and play with certain features in Active Directory. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll catch you next time.